I really just wanted to thank you all for coming. It's lovely to have you. And, you know, despite the rain, it's all great to be together. I do take what Max said. One very thing I have found over the years is this house has been lovely to come back to on lots of times when I've been away. But anyway, I'm not going to say very much other than thanking you for coming because it's all in the book. I've said enough. But we did make a few changes because of the COVID, so you'll probably find the afternoon teas are a little bit different, but never mind. And if we do have to move suddenly, I'm sure it'll be all right to move in under the house or upstairs.
Upstairs.
Upstairs or under the house? Oh, well, I'll leave it to you and Neil to work out. But thank you all for coming. It's lovely to have you here with us.
Yeah.
Before breakfast when she had her cup of tea. So that memory has come down through the ages. Not much else really. It's just a delight to come today and see so many of the family here and people I've known over the years, and to think what a wonderful opportunity it is to catch up with everybody. So thank you very much.
So enjoy the house, it's got lots of perks. And thank you, Mama, for making a most magnificent memoir. Well done.
So Flower asked me to say a couple of words as the eldest grandchild, just about the house. To me, growing up, this is where we would come on our Christmas holidays. And it really shaped my entire sense of what Brisbane was. So for me it was being in this house, the sound of the trains, the magpies, the possums jumping around in the roof, Granddad having possum wars with them, but he was always trying to lock them out and fail and they get back in. Summer storms, and it also shapes, I suppose, my sense of what a home should be. So rooms with multiple doorways, gardens, lots of secret little gardens with secret paths, lots of vines and trees and lots of green everywhere. And it was also, this home was a sense of family to me. So when we come here, lots of young, energetic uncles and aunts to play with and then harass to keep playing with us. If they ever tried to stop, raucous games of dictionary on Christmas night, where the aim of the game wasn't to win, but to make the most outrageous meaning. Afternoon teas, afternoons where all sorts of first and second and third cousins would come to visit, and lots of swimming in the pool. Stories of fourth and fifth and second cousins once removed round the round table, who were all, living in and around Brisbane. Certainly made me a little cautious before I ever got too intimate with any nice looking boys, just to check their background. And finally, when I moved to Brisbane, it was always having somewhere to go when the share house was too messy and loud and disgusting, or when my dodgy rental was too hot and awful and we had no milk, or as I got older, when the baby hadn't slept all night and I couldn't bear the idea of being friendly to anyone but hated the idea of being alone. I always knew I could come to Flower and Granddad's house, that there would always be a cup of tea and a slice, often a curry, and sometimes even a glass of lambrusco. But most importantly, a space to feel at home and a sense of belonging, a sense of coming back to where I'm from and all the people who had come here but lived here before me. Thank you.
this could be a really early onset sort of psychiatric disorder, but I asked her what was going on and she just said, well, I'm just speaking to fairies. So thank you, Hannah. And
Lord, I'd always come over and be greeted happily by Grandad and be seated by Flower to eat some delicious stuff she made for us, like chocolate brownies, pikelets, or little cupcakes. After that, we would have a swim. Once I was swimming and Flower got in and started doing backstroke. I remember standing there, mouth open, staring. Always after we would have a swim, Flower would play grip ball with us in the front yard. That was always a pleasant end to a Friday. Enough talk about them, and time to talk about the house itself. Every single day I would go and look at the little gnome village while sipping a cup of tea. It always used to be very sweet because I put lots of sugar in, but the little gnome garden somehow made it sweeter. The little sandpit always made things a bit more entertaining every time. I remember one time playing in the sandpit and felt a little something against my leg and ran straight out. Turns out it was just a tree root. In conclusion, the house, the people who live here are strange, loving, interesting, entertaining, and wonderful people, but we're lucky to have them. Thank you.
Paulie Roberts, yeah. Now, he was the leader of the gang, and we used to end up down at Breakfast Creek where they used to moor the boats. And at one stage there, someone had a boat moored, and I was 1 foot on the boat, 1 foot on the jetty, and of course the boat went out. I went in, and I can remember Paulie Roberts saying to me, "Jeff, walk along the bottom." So Brett's had a big timber yard here, and we used to climb in amongst the balks of timber that they had here, and it was a great playground for kids. Very dangerous, but in those years I had a great time over here, and Rose's mother, my grandmother, was the most wonderful grandmother you could get. So I have very, very fond memories of this house, and I'll be extremely interested to read the book, so thank you.
Because you've now heard from the violent part of the family. So my mum's name is Mina Hart, and
Can you speak up a tiny bit?
my mother's name was Mina Hart. And so she was married to Ken Campbell. My mother taught my dad a bit of style, and so I realised that the Harts had style. So we often would come over here on a Sunday afternoon. For some of you that may remember, over the road was 29 Murray Street, and that's where a lot of weddings and celebrations would take place, and often we'd be left here while Mum and Dad went over the road. And it was always good to come here with Auntie Winnie and Eugene. I walked in this afternoon and I saw Eugene sitting in the chair, and it was Jeffrey. And the great thing is I've seen Jeffrey, I've seen Pete, and I've seen Stephen, the Browns brothers. Now, when I talk about violence, the Browns lived at Aspley, and we were quite a passive family from St Lucia. So, and Mum was quite passive. But if you went to the Browns, they had a big rumpus room, and it was full of sporting equipment. Obviously, Bill Brown's sports store. But the first thing that would happen is you'd be handed a pair of boxing gloves. And then you'd have to line up and you'd have a fight with Jeffrey. Peter was far more sort of benevolent, and Steve was a bit younger, so he used to cop it. But Jeff used to dish it out, and they had a horse. And that horse knew how to run under the hill's hoist when you were sitting on it. So they knew that. I remember they were just establishing the garden, and there was all these tree stumps were all smouldering with fire. And so here we were at the Browns' place. Good fun. What a lovely family. Memories of here, for me, I think as I said this afternoon, my mother, Mina, Rosemary, Barb, and Aunt Winnie, they were to me what women were all about. They were great women, wonderful women, wonderful sense of humour, soft, feminine. Isn't that lacking today? And so it's always good to be controversial around this because I think one of the most controversial persons in Brisbane sitting over there, he who must be worshipped. But it was a wonderful time to come. It was also my introduction to industry because on Sunday afternoon the railways over there would start up and there'd be a great big pool of black smoke. My grandmother lived on Campbell Street, Bowen Hills, and I would sit at the back window and look at all these locomotives with the big black pool of smoke, carbon it's called today, and there it was, all these railway trains getting ready to go to work around Brisbane. Eugene was a very, very quietly spoken chap, and I used to wonder how this house here was the Brisbane home, and the family had a home at Redcliffe, or Scarborough, not quite sure where it was. And that used to marvel to me how they could go there for their weekends and their school holidays was just to Redcliffe. That would have been probably a half a day's trip and maybe two car tyres on the way, blown car tyres. There was a big black and tan dog here. There was a lovely tennis court. And it was just a lovely, lovely home. And there was a calmness about it all. And that's what I loved. I could never quite reconcile the calmness though and the violence. So for me, I would often leave here with a bruised face or a punched up nose or whatever. And I'd say to my brother, how did you go? He said, I got a good one in on Steve. Steve was only about 10 years younger than him. So I think Steve used to cop a bit. Where's Steve? Steve used to cop a bit. Anyway, it's been wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you so much, Rosemary. I often think about you in life as one of that beautiful, you're a lovely angel. That's how you are for me. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
The kids will be talking about it in their 90s and we'll be talking about it every visit to your house, Rosemary. I've been asked to do a couple of things. Those who don't know me, I'm 2 houses east of here. So we're 61 Clifton Street, and we've been here 24 years, so we're only just new really. So I'm very privileged to be invited to acknowledge a beautiful home that's over 100 years old, and so we're appreciative of that. My wife Fiona is here, and my daughter Grace is here, which just is a example of why we adore Rosemary. She's a mentor to my daughter. Grace loves Rosemary in a bit, but so does Fiona. Rosemary's always got Fiona's back, which makes it challenging at times. But I'll leave that there. I can't help but feel with homes today that we're reducing them to how big they can be and how much of the yard that they can take up. And I've just been noticing some friends who are having homes being built beside them in neighbourhoods like this. It just seems like every inch gets used up. Now we're all human, we all want something bigger and bigger, but just one on this street actually, I don't know who owns it, so if you're here, I share a lot of love with you as well, but just all the grass was the first thing to go, and it's just all cement. It's just a cement yard. And it'll be absolutely stunning magazine home. I'm sure it'll be a beautiful home. We'll have lots of stories. But when we came here, we had a woman called Swanee next door, and she was in her 90s, and her yard was a jungle. And our kids grew up in that yard like an adventure. And like the kids were saying today, it's amazing to think what they experienced. And I can't help but feel, even here in the rain, I've not been to Papua New Guinea, but I just had that feeling like we're in the jungle here. And we're in a very human place. It just feels lived in, it feels messy, it feels deep in history and stories, and tension. There's a real tension here of you hope it doesn't just end up at some point changing from what it is today. And when the rain started, it kind of felt natural, of course, you know. And I think Rosemary's been sort of semi-predicting this, so having plan Bs and Cs and things like that. But so that's my personal reflections on homes of the past and some of the reflections today. But I have been asked to make some commentary around Vish's book launch and today's book launch. We were fortunate to host Vish's book launch, and it was in a 32 perch block over there, but today we're on an acre almost. Oh, nice. And so I sort of feel like this is a very special book launch. But who came to Vish's book launch? So there's a few people here. I thought it might be good to just quickly push the rewind button. For those who weren't here, because I'll be asking the jury today just to vote quickly on what they think of Vish's and Rosemary's launches. Both wonderful, but sometimes one's a little bit more wonderful than the other. But I'm going to be asking the bailiff from Vish's book launch, Alex David Granlund from 50 Clifton Street. Vish had 3 judgments against him at his book launch from the jury, which was about 100 people in the jury. And I'm just going to ask the bailiff just to quickly remind everyone what those 3 counts against Vish were.
Yes, this book launch is it's fairly important in the suburb. It's going to be a big vote, so certainly when you ask to vote, think about it. So it's between obviously Vish and Rosemary. Now there's a few things that came out on Vish's book launch that Vish I suppose spoke about or was reflected on at the time. And Rosemary was doubtful on some of the authenticity of that. So I'm just sort of putting Rosemary's defence side to raise her profile a bit. And so what happened was Rosemary was going to come up here. She asked me also because as a wife she can't give evidence against the husband. So I'm sort of speaking on Rosemary's point of view. So there's a couple of things come up. The first one was when Vish did away from Brisbane prosecuting for the Crown, and he informed the people who looking after him in Cairns that his national food was lobster. And this was certainly disputed, but it went through at the time, and Rosemary feels that's not exactly the national food for breakfast, dinner, tea for a Fijian. So she'd just like me to point that out. And then it came to that Vish accepted anywhere he went in the Crown office in town that he's quite happy with his accommodation, but what he would do, he'd walk around with a tape measure, and as he went to a junior prosecutor's office, he'd measure the desk just to make sure that the desk was no bigger than his, because he was deemed a senior prosecutor. And then the last thing that came up, that when Vish spoke, he was asked to do I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But Rosemary feels on a couple of occasions that what happened is, it's a straight question, Rosemary, Vish, have you locked the security grill? And it is yes. But numerous times it's open. Vish, have you shut the garage door? Yes. Numerous of times it's never shut. So just a bit of more in depth on when you vote. Just take this consideration. Plus the content of the book obviously is very important. And not forgetting that this book has taken over 100 years to do, where Vish was only in the sem of 80 odd. So think about that voting when the man here asks for hands up. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, bailiff. Who here votes for Rosemary? Hooray! Yay! All right, that's done. Now to toast the house or the home, and I thought we'd do something I can't sing, but we'll sing a song, In the Jungle, the Mighty Jungle. Then we'll have 3 cheers after that, but who'd like to lead? Who can sing?
Sarah.
Okay, Sarah, let's sing In the Jungle. 1, 2, 3.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.
Okay, that's probably where we leave that. So. 3 cheers for the house. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. And 3 cheers for Rosemary and her wonderful book that we're all still to read. I hope no one's been ahead of us, but I think we're all getting the book to read. So
There's one person who's read it.
one person's read it.
Yes, she whooshed through it. That's June Camp. Put your hand up, June.
Well, June's got a free book and all commission on sale. So 3 cheers for Rosemary. Hip, hip, hip. Hooray. Okay. Oh, another hip. Hip. And one more. Hip. Well done.
For today, and I'd like to especially thank Rosemary for writing this book, which we're all very keen to read, and to document this place for history. And also I'd like to thank everyone who helped to set things up: Lalita, Lorna, Sarah, Lucy, Kathy, Robert, David, and Robbie G, and also for Vishal for his help. It was great. So thanks again for all for coming. I'd like you to just continue, eating sandwiches or whatever it is you're doing. And thank you again.
And Neil, I'll be giving out
You'll get it if you stay for longer. You'll get a free book. All right, but we'll just see how long you stay. All right.
సంతోషం వందదప్ప